Hi guys, Dennis here, and welcome to part 2 of Picker Views. In this video, we'll build a more complicated picker view with 3 components. We'll use the app to build a sandwich by choosing the type of meat, cheese, and bread you want. So stick around and let's get started. Okay, let's open up Xcode, and we'll select Create a New Project. And we'll use a single view application once again. Click Next. And we're going to call this project name Picker Views. Oh, let's spell it right here. Part 2. We can leave the class prefix blank. Make sure devices is set to iPhone. We won't be using storyboards, but please make sure automatic reference counting has been selected. Let's click Next and Create. And we have our project. So let's jump over to the zip file and select that. And we're going to go up to the File Inspector, and we want to deselect Use Auto Layout. That's a subject for another video, so we won't be using it here. Okay, we can go ahead and close out our Utilities panel. Let's jump over to our header file. And first, we're going to define 3 constants to represent each component in our picker. Now, components, as you recall, are the columns in a picker, and they're assigned an index number starting at 0 on the left and moving to the right. Understand that we don't have to use constants in this application, but doing so will make our code a lot easier to read. Now also remember, it's good programming practice to define constants with a preceding lowercase k so that they're easily recognized in our code. So let's get started with that. And we define constants with the define, and our first one will be lowercase k, and it'll be a meat component with a number of 0. Second one will be define lowercase k, and this will be our cheese component, and that will have an index of 1. And then third, define lowercase k with our bread component, and that will have a 2. Now don't get tripped up here. Don't use a semicolon to end the statements. If you do, the compiler will throw an error. So just a word to the wise. So next, we need to conform our class file to the 2 PickerView data source and delegate protocols. So let's add those protocols now using the angle brackets. So the first one will be UI PickerView data source, and then we also need the UI PickerView delegate, and we close that off with an angle bracket. Now also we need to reposition these definitions here. They should go before the interface. Let's move those. Up here. Okay, that looks better. Okay, so we're going to need 3 arrays for our application. 1 for our meats, 1 for our cheeses, and 1 for our bread. So let's write the properties for those. So property, non-atomic and strong, and this is an NS array. And the first array will be called meats, and then app property, non-atomic and strong, NS array, and this one will be called cheeses, and our third will be property, non-atomic and strong, one more NS array, and this last one will be our breads. Let's dress that up so it's nice and even. Okay, so next we're going to jump over to our zip file and we'll add the objects that we need. So let's jump over there. And we need three things. We need a sandwich label, a picker view, and a command button. So let's go ahead and open up our utilities panel. And let's add our picker view first. So we'll just go down to search and we'll type in pick, and there's our picker view. We'll drag that over and set that right in. And while we're here, let's go up to the size inspector, and we're going to deselect that top I-beam and we're going to pin it to the bottom. Next, we're going to go over to the connections inspector and let's connect up our two outlets. First, we'll connect the data source, and to do that, we select, drag over to Files Owner, Release, and then we'll do the same with our delegate. Select, drag, and release. Okay. So next, let's add a command button. And a round rectangle button is fine. And we'll just entitle this, let's change that to Make Sandwich. Okay, and now we need a label. We'll drag that over. And this label will be used to display the results of our picker. So let's go ahead and we'll drag that out. And there's going to be a lot of information in this label, so we need to make a fairly good sized label, and we need to ensure that we have two rows. Let's go to our identity inspector and we'll center the text, and let's change that to 2 lines. We'll also delete the text in there because we're going to add text programmatically to this field. Okay, now we're ready to add the properties. Let's close out our utility panel and we'll open up our assistant editor, and we can add the properties that we need. So we'll start off with our button, and we'll control drag, and this will be an IB action. The type is a UI button, so we'll select that, and we'll call this Make Sandwich, and hit connect. And the next thing is our label, control drag, and we'll just call this Sandwich Label, and we'll connect. And the last item is our picker view, control drag, and this is an outlet, and we'll just call this simply picker. Try to spell it right though, picker, and connect. We'll close out our assistant editor, and that just about does it for our interface. So the next stop is our implementation file, and the first thing we want to do here is synthesize our properties so that we don't have to use an underscore when referring to them. So we want to synthesize our meats, our cheeses, our breads, and also our picker. Okay, now it's time to build our arrays, and as usual, the best place to do that is in the viewDidLoad method. Let's go ahead and get rid of our comment. And we're going to use the literal syntax to build our array. So let's go ahead and start off with our meats array equals @ square bracket, and we'll just start adding objects here. Okay, now that we have all our arrays, we also want to sort these. So let's go ahead and add some sort routines, and we'll start with the meats equals bracket meats, and we'll use the assorted array using selector and selector, and we'll use compare. And we'll do the same for our cheeses, bracket cheeses, sorted array using selector, and once again for our breads. Okay, so let's code our button next. So it's off to the IB action make sandwich button. So let's go ahead and use our jump bar and find that, and it's down at the bottom. So we'll need to assign an NS integer for each item that's selected in our component. So think of it as an index. And a note here, remember we don't use a pointer when defining an object of type NS integer. So let's start off with NS integer. And the first one will be meets row. And that'll be our picker, selected row in component, and the component will be k meet component. Next up, let's go ahead and give ourselves some room so I can bring this up a little bit. Next will be NS integer, and this one we'll call cheeses row, for lack of a better word. And we get that with the picker, selected row and component, and that will be k cheese component. See where this is going? NS integer, and the last one will be the breads row, and that will be picker, selected row, and that will be k breads component. Okay, now we'll grab the value that corresponds to each row number in each component. So we'll start off with an NS string, and this first one we'll call meet, and that equals meets our array, and then we'll use the parameter meets row that we just created. Second one will be another NS string, and this one will be called cheese, and that is cheeses. We want the array, and we use the cheeses row. And a string. The last one is bread. Oh, forgot the pointer. Bread, and that is breads. Make sure we select the array, and we'll use the breads row. Okay, now we need a string to hold our message. This message is what we're going to be putting into that label, and this is what's in our sandwich that we've made. So let's create a string, and we'll just entitle this message MSG, and this will be an NS string, and we awk, and we're going to init with format on this one. Let's go find format. Here it is. And we're going to use, oops, you ordered a, and then we'll use a placeholder %at, and another placeholder %at on a third placeholder %at bread. So what this is going to do is it's going to say you ordered a type of meat and type of cheese on type of bread. And finally, we'll assign that string to the text property of our label. So our label is called underscore sandwich label dot text equals message. Okay, we've got a few more things to do here, and that involves the UI picker view data source and delegate methods that we need. So let's go ahead and put a pragma mark here. just so we'll know where to find this. And let's go grab our methods. And to do so, we'll hop over to our header file and we'll option click on the picker view data source. That opens up a dialog box, and we're going to click on the link for the header, and we're going to find the picker view data source, and we're going to grab the two required methods, the number of components in picker view and the number of rows in component. Command C, jump back over to our implementation file, and let's go ahead and paste those below our pragma mark. Do a little housekeeping and add our curly braces. Get that one and one more, and we're good to go. So let's code the first one. That's the number of components in picker view. And since we have 3 columns, we'll return 3 here. That was pretty easy. Next up, number of rows in component. And this is going to require an if statement, and we're going to return the number of rows in each array using the instance method count. So we write that like this: if component is equal to, and we'll start off with the constant meet component, and then we return array name meets count. And then we do an else if component is equal to the constant, and we'll do cheese this time, cheese component. Then we're going to return the cheese is count. And make sure we choose the array count. And this final one will be an else. We'll just return, and this will be breads count. And of course we have an error here. Seems to never fail when we use these long if statements. Expected expression, so I have a bracket here that I don't need. Let me get rid of that. And I probably can get rid of that one. Okay, that cleaned that error up. Okay, the next method that we need to go grab is the picker view title for row. So let's go grab that now. So you know the routine. Off to the header, option click on the data source, click on the header, and we're looking for the title for row. Let's see. And there it is. Let's grab that. Command C, back over to our implementation, and we'll add that next. And we'll put in our curly braces. Okay, now our title for row depends on which component, i.e. our column, we're referring to. We'll use another if statement to make our determination. So this one will be if, and this will be component once again. If our component is equal to, and we'll use the meet first, k, meet component, and then we need to get rid of that brace there, otherwise we'll have the same error. And then this first one will be returning meets and the row parameter. Actually, we don't need that first bracket. Let's get rid of that. That's just going to be meets and then with the row parameter. That's the way it's supposed to look. And that needs to be a capital M. Okay, and we'll do an else if components, let's tidy that up a little bit more, component is equal to, and this one will be our cheese, K cheese component, and we're going to return our cheeses array with our row parameter. And last, else, we'll just return, oops, our breads row. Oops. Okay, and I think we have one curly brace too many there. And that looks correct. Let's tidy this up a little bit, and that looks good. Okay, I think we're ready to build and run and see what we have. Okay, let's see how our picker view is working, and that looks good, and this one looks good, and this one looks good. Alright, so let's put it on chicken, on pepper jack, on sourdough, and we'll click make our sandwich, and we throw an error. Let's find out what's going on. So we have a whole slew of errors here, so let's track them down, and oh, everything seems to be in our make sandwich, and oh, this is obvious. I bet everybody that was watching saw this. I forgot to put our variables in our string statement here. So we need to add a comma meat, and we need to choose the string, and we need to use the cheese. Make sure we choose the string and bread. And I bet it works a lot better now. Let's go ahead and stop that and run it again and see what we have. Okay, so far so good. Our picker is working correctly, so let's put it on ham and cheddar on rye and click make sandwich, and you ordered a ham and cheddar on rye, so that's working the way it's supposed to now. Well, there's one more thing we can do to improve the look of our application. Let's make it so that whenever we're scrolling through the picker, the label will remain blank until we click make your sandwich. So let's stop our build, and we'll jump over to the header file and click on the click on the delegate method, and we'll click on the header, and we want to find the did select row method, and that happens to be the last one. Go ahead and Command C that, jump back over to our implementation, and we'll scroll down to the end, and we'll add this last method. We need some curly braces here. And the way that we code this is pretty easy. We just take our sandwich label, which is an underscore sandwich label dot text, and we assign a empty string to it. So let's build and run, see what that looks like. Okay, so we choose chicken, cheddar, it's on sourdough, make sandwich. Okay, that works. So let's go ahead and scroll through this a little bit. And as we scroll, the screen goes blank again. That's what we were looking for. And let's stop on roast beef with feta cheese on wheat bread. Make our sandwich, and it's working just like it's supposed to. So that about does it for part 2 of Picker Views. I hope it's been helpful. So look for other iOS development videos on my channel. So thanks for watching, and please subscribe.